Hello, and welcome to Humanity Unplugged podcast. I am your host, Jermaine McCrimmon, and it is Sunday, another beautiful day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Hi, fans. Hi, people, family, for first time listeners or people passing just in general or for our long time listeners, we thank you guys for tuning in to us. Um, I just want to say we really enjoy doing what we do here. And I know I'm pushing it out into the next week now. I'm gonna try to get back to that scheduled programming on Tuesdays and Thursdays, give you out two a week. Work has been crazy, can't get out of it. Working, planning other things. God is good. I just want to say to all of the young 2026 graduates from high school, we applaud you. We think you're doing great. To all the youth that's coming out of college with their bachelor's, associates, masters, doctorates, we also support you and tell you you're doing great as well. You are somebody. Um, put your mind to it. Ain't nothing you can't achieve. Today, episode 147 is I talked about doing this episode in 146 where I talked about giving you a conclusion to Nolan Wells. I didn't talk about it at all. Everybody was on top of it. I did a little snippet in 146, but now I'm going to give you some more information because now the layers are now starting to peel off the onion, and we're starting to see the effery unfold itself, and people can clearly see with their eyes what's going on with the government and what's going on in general. And this situation is no different than Deion Walters. He's been in a situation where he's been a kid missing 4th of July, and he's still um they done did his funeral. He wasn't missing. I'm sorry. He was found hung, I believe, and he hung or drowned, one of the two. We're gonna get into it, and this happened on 4th of July as well. And they just did a memorial not too long ago for him, and he never made the news at all. I didn't hear anything about it, and it's sad that our children and kids, youth, all African American, I must say, have been being taken out one by one. If it ain't the prison system, it's drugs. If it's not drugs, it's our community. If it's not the community, it's the lack of education. If it's not the lack of education, it's the structure at home. And if it's not neither one of the last four or five I just mentioned, you always got a slot for the big R, which is racism. Now, the surprising topic that's there taking us out is the YN. Y'all know what YN stands for nowadays, and that is who's taking us out. Our own people are having a great time taking us out. Um, we find ways to argue and fuss about the small, minute things in our world because we suffer from so much depression. De-escalation is not a part of our structure. We don't know how to apologize or just walk away from a situation. We always find a way to put aggression or to find a way to shift the blame of something on somebody else. And that's some of the reason why we say we get incarcerated because of our upbringing or what we went through as a child. Well, I will say to you, as a child, you thought as a child. but you know right from wrong once you reach a certain age in your life. So you know whether you should be doing that or not. So we can't just keep blaming or saying our upbringing made us who we are. No, our upbringing made us make bad decisions that got us the way we are now. Yeah, I'll definitely say that a lot of people's upbringing allowed them to make bad decisions on where they're at now in their life by not having an open mind and understanding that decisions you make at a young age can cost you at an earlier age is part of the problem. um, Society and the community don't allow us sometimes to grow. They want to keep us cultivated into what the surrounding areas look like and let you think this is all you need. But life is much more than your surrounding areas. You need to grow. Every animal grows, every mammal grows, everything grows. A tree doesn't stay the same size. It grows, flowers bloom, leaves grow, they turn colors, they die, and they reappear again the next year. Seasons must happen to you in life just like it happens to things in the world. So, as we look at Nolan Wells and we look at Deion Walters and we look at other kids that's coming up missing and being hung, we look at the society around them. We look at the family structure around them. We look at the upbringing of how these were basically all very good kids, great future ahead of them, and they were taken out for whatever reason. We can blame it on the big R, or we can blame it on the other things I just mentioned to you. But nevertheless, the kids are not here any longer, and you cannot bring them back. So now, as a human being, you look for justice. You look for some type of closure to what happened, even though with the closure, you don't get back the child that you lost. You don't get back that call that you got, that you received. That never goes away. That your kid is never coming to that room again. You'll never see him again on this earth. That experience that a lot of people go through in life, some people never recover. As we go into our 8-minute mark, I want you to understand on this podcast, I'm not doing no talking too much. I'm just letting things play because I need you to hear all the information. I need you to listen fully so you can get a clear understanding of what took place with Nolan Wells, where we at in Nolan Wells' case, and a little bit of Deion Walters to tighten up the end. But this is going to be a long one, and I'm not going to talk anymore. I'm going to give y'all that work. God bless you all. I thank you guys for tuning in every week. And for my people all over across seas, all over town, Cambodia, um, China, Japan, um, Africa, Russia, Europe, Australia, Asia, North America, South America, Antarctica. I got people listening all over, and I applaud you guys. I thank you, Vietnamese. I thank you guys, Singapore. I thank you for coming through and continue to show support. I bless you guys. I thank you. Let's pass along, share the link, share the profile. Let's become a family. Let's get together, guys. Awareness is key. And if we can save at least one or two children, we did our job by just passing information on. I'm your host, Jermaine McCrimmon. Let's go.
The Mississippi Department of Marine Resources, tracking the movements of the boat Nolan Wells was on before he disappeared July 4th.
For 2 weeks, a name has carried more weight than almost anything else in the Nolan case, precisely because so little was known about the person attached to it. A name without a full story. Two people were with Nolan Wells in his final confirmed minutes on Horn Island. Nolan's friends, and a young woman they only ever referred to by her first name. For nearly 2 weeks, one of those two accounts stayed almost entirely out of public view, while the other was repeated so many times it started to sound like established fact. Tonight, that changes, because what Katie says happened does not match what his friends have told investigators, and a family that has already lost their son now has to sit with the possibility that somebody, somewhere in this story, isn't telling them the truth. Think about what that means for two parents who have spent every day since July the 4th trying to understand how their son's holiday trip ended the way it did. It isn't enough for them to know what happened. They need to know who they can trust to tell them. There's more waiting for you tonight. Tracked GPS coordinates showing exactly where a boat went, hour by hour, on the day Nolan disappeared. A record that doesn't care about anyone's feelings or loyalties, only about what actually occurred. A grand jury, now officially in motion, carrying this case somewhere it has never been before. And a set of small, strange details his own parents still can't make sense of. Details that have nothing to do with online rumors or viral posts, and everything to do with what actually happened on a barrier island off the coast of Mississippi. Before we start, a quick note. This case centers on the death of a young man, so if that's a heavy topic for you tonight, please take care of yourself as we go. And if you want to follow this case as it develops, hit subscribe now, and let us know in the comments where you're tuning in from tonight. Because a family somewhere is hoping the right person sees this and remembers something they haven't shared yet. Let's start with the name that took 2 weeks to surface, and the fear that came attached to it. Nolan had a conversation with a young woman on the beach. His friends would later refer to her only as Katie. That's where the confirmed information stopped, for a long time. Katie's identity wasn't in the first wave of coverage. It wasn't in the early statements from the family's legal team, while speculation online chased down pool parties and out-of-context video clips. The one person who may have spoken with Nolan last sat almost completely unidentified, unaware, most likely, that her name would eventually matter this much to strangers she had never met. Part of the reason traces back to the very first night he went missing, a night that for his mother must have felt like it stretched on without end. According to someone who was on the phone with Christine Wansley as she tried to figure out where her son was, Katie's name entered the conversation almost by accident, mentioned as someone Nolan had wanted to stay behind with. And then came a detail that made an already terrifying night considerably worse. Word that Katie herself might be missing too, with nobody on that call able to say who she actually was, or where to even begin looking for her. Picture that moment for a second. A mother already searching for one missing child, suddenly told there might be two. No name to attach to the second worry, no number to call, just more fear, stacked on top of fear that already had nowhere left to go. That particular fear turned out to be unfounded. Katie was never missing. She had left the island safely that day on a different boat, and had been reachable the entire time. Confirmation of that came not from police, and not from Nolan's friends, but from her own mother, Gracie McCormack, who posted publicly to correct the record once speculation about her daughter started spreading online in ways she never expected. According to McCormack, her daughter was on Horn Island that day, spent time with Nolan, and the two parted ways sometime that afternoon. She says her daughter has no knowledge of anything that happened to him afterward. She said goodbye to him. She got on a different boat. She went home to a mother who had no idea, at the time, that her daughter's name would soon sit at the center of one of the most talked about cases in the country. If that were the whole story, it would end there, quietly, the way most small footnotes in a larger tragedy tend to end. It doesn't. Because attorney Ben Crump, representing the Wells family, says Katie's account of that final conversation is specific and hasn't wavered, and it conflicts directly with what Nolan's friends have said. According to Katie, Nolan told her he was planning to rejoin his friends and get back on their boat before they left the island. According to the friends themselves, Nolan told them the opposite, that he intended to stay behind on the island with Katie, entirely by his own choice, in his own words. Both statements cannot be accurate. One of these two accounts is wrong. And somewhere behind that single word, wrong, sits a family who has to live with not knowing which one it is. If Katie's version holds up, Then something happened in the space between Nolan stating his intention to leave and the boat actually pulling away without him. Something interrupted whatever plan he had. Nobody has explained what. If the friend's version holds up, then Nolan made a deliberate, conscious choice to remain alone on a remote barrier island as his only ride home departed without him, which raises an entirely different question about what happened to him in the hours that followed, alone, without the group he had spent the whole day with. This isn't a theory pulled from a comment section, or a claim built on speculation. It's a direct contradiction between two people who were both there, describing Nolan's last documented words in two ways that simply cannot be reconciled with each other. And right now, as of this recording, nobody, not the family, not the investigators, not anyone with the authority to say for certain, has resolved it. Nolan's parents are left holding two versions of their son's final choice, unable to know which one is real. There's a particular kind of pain in that specific uncertainty, one that's different from grief itself. Grief, terrible as it is, at least has a shape. It's the loss of a person you loved. But this is something else. The loss of even knowing your own son's last decision. Did he choose to stay, or did he intend to come home? For most families, that would be an easy thing to answer, pieced together from a dozen small confirmations that never even register as important until they're needed. For the Wansley family, it has become the single hardest unanswered question in their son's entire case, and nobody has been able to hand them a real answer yet. Now, beyond that conversation, there are smaller inconsistencies the family has raised publicly, the kind of details that would never make a headline on their own, but that add weight the longer you sit with them. Start with something as simple and as easy to dismiss as a piece of clothing. The official police report lists Nolan wearing black shorts at the time of his disappearance, but according to Christine Wansley, a young woman who was on the island that day later reached out and shared photos with her, showing Nolan in blue shorts, not black. On its own, it sounds like nothing. A clerical slip, a misremembered detail. But try to see it the way a mother sees it. A mother who no longer has the ability to simply ask her son what he was wearing that day, or why, or where he went afterward. For her, that detail isn't a footnote to move past. It's a thread. And once you begin pulling on one thread in a case built almost entirely on other people's memories, you cannot help but look for the next one. Then there's what happened before Nolan's body was even found, while his parents were still holding on to hope, still half expecting a phone call that would end this nightmare with relief instead of grief. They went to retrieve his car from a friend's driveway, a task that should have taken minutes. According to the family, it turned unexpectedly difficult. A friend came to the door claiming he couldn't find the keys. He went back inside to check again. Minutes passed, the kind of minutes that feel endless when you're standing on someone else's porch, waiting, with your missing son somewhere out there and no way to reach him. Eventually, the keys turned up exactly where another person, overheard on a phone call, happened to mention they had been the entire time. Sitting on top of an Xbox, inside the house. For a family already desperate for anything resembling a straight answer, a delay like that doesn't read as coincidence. It reads as friction, appearing at the exact moment they needed things to be simple. And then there is Nolan's phone. According to a family friend who helped track the device down using a monitoring application, Nolan posted to Snapchat almost every day, the kind of habit so consistent it barely registered as a habit at all, until it stopped. In the 24 hours before he disappeared, that activity went completely silent. No updates, no posts. A silence that everyone close to him agrees was simply not like him. When the device was finally located, one more inconsistency surfaced. The location tied to the account didn't even match the place where the phone itself was ultimately found. Consider what it must be like to sit with that particular detail as a parent. Nolan's digital life had been, by every account, an open book, the kind of constant, casual documentation so common among people his age that nobody thinks twice about it. And then, for exactly the window of time that matters most, it goes quiet. Not gradually, not with warning, just silence. In the 24-hour stretch his family would give almost anything to understand. It's easy, watching from the outside.
I just wanted to pause, let you know I'm still here, guys. I'm letting it roll.
To treat a detail like that as a clue in the way a mystery novel treats a clue. something with an obvious explanation waiting just around the corner. For Nolan's parents, it isn't that simple. It's one more piece of their son's last day that doesn't behave the way the rest of his life did, and they don't have the luxury of treating it as a plot point. They have to live with it as an open question, indefinitely, until someone gives them a real answer. None of these details, taken individually, tell us exactly what happened to Nolan Wells. But together, according to the people who loved him most, they're the reason this family says they cannot simply accept the official account as complete, and why they continue, night after night, to ask questions nobody has fully answered yet. While all of this has been unfolding in the background, the contradictions, the small unexplained details, the quiet work of investigators trying to reconstruct a single afternoon, Nolan's family has also had to do something no parent should ever have to plan for: say goodbye. Christine Wansley announced that her son's homegoing celebration would be held on Monday, July the 20th, at Center Point Church in Ocean Springs, the same community that watched Nolan grow up, play football, and become the young man his coaches and teammates describe with such consistency. A place that once celebrated his signing day now has to prepare to lay him to rest. And it's worth remembering, underneath every headline and every piece of tracked data, that this is still, fundamentally, a family grieving a son in front of an audience of millions they never asked for. That's part of why accuracy matters so much here. Every detail in this case is being absorbed not just by strangers online, but by two parents who will carry whatever gets said about their son for the rest of their lives. They don't get to walk away from this story once it stops trending. They live inside it, permanently now, and the only thing anyone watching can really offer them is care in how their son's story gets told. If you want to keep up with every confirmed development in this case as it happens, subscribe now, because what we're covering next isn't based on anyone's memory, or anyone's account, or anyone's version of events at all. It's based entirely on tracked data, the one part of this story that cannot be shaped by grief, or loyalty, or fear. Here is what the GPS record shows. At 9:56 in the morning on July the 4th, the boat carrying Nolan and his friends left its dock, beginning a day that no one on board could have known would end the way it did. By 11:14, it had reached Horn Island. For several hours afterward, the group stayed together, celebrating the holiday the way so many others were doing that same afternoon along that same stretch of coast. At 4:31 that afternoon, according to data from the Mississippi Department of Marine Resources, the boat left Horn Island. Nolan was not on board. It returned to its original dock, and then, rather than staying there for the night, it kept moving. At 5:52 p.m., the boat traveled into Fort Bayou. By 6:06, it was back at the dock once again. Later that night at 7:19 p.m., the boat's tracked position shifted one more time to the Fort Bayou boat launch. From there, according to the Marine Resources report, it was taken out of the water entirely and moved over land, presumably towed by a vehicle, to a residence in Biloxi, owned by the boat's owners. Sit with that sequence. 4 separate movements, recorded automatically after the moment Nolan was left behind. Not one simple boat trip home, but a series of stops across several hours, ending on land more than 70 miles from where the day began. That sequence, tracked without any input from anyone connected to this case, is the exact window investigators are still working to fully explain, and the exact window Nolan's parents replay in their minds, over and over, searching for what might have happened inside it. Now to where the official process stands, and what has changed most recently for a family that has spent weeks waiting for anyone in a position of authority to simply sit down and talk to them directly. On July the 15th, Nolan's parents did exactly that. Christine and Elmore Wansley sat down face-to-face with Jackson County District Attorney Angel Myers McElrath, their first direct meeting with her office since Nolan's body was found on Horn Island. Attorney Ben Crump described the meeting afterward as respectful and candid, a small but meaningful shift after more than a week of feeling like they were on the outside of their own son's case. And out of that meeting came confirmation that once the DA's investigation wraps up, its findings will go to a grand jury. That phrase tends to carry more emotional weight than it actually holds, so it's worth being precise here, both for the sake of accuracy and for the sake of a family who has already had their story distorted enough. A grand jury referral is not a verdict. It is not a formal accusation against any one person. It does not mean charges have already been filed, and it does not mean investigators have concluded a crime took place. What it means, specifically, is that the case has reached a procedural point where its findings will be formally reviewed to determine whether charges are warranted at all. It's a mechanism, a process, movement, but not resolution, and this family knows, better than anyone, the difference between those two words. Crump also used the moment to correct something that had spread widely online, the claim that the FBI had effectively taken over this investigation. According to an official statement from FBI Jackson, the Bureau has assisted Jackson County investigators with specific elements of the case, largely centered on threats made against individuals connected to the investigation, threats that crossed state lines and therefore fell under federal jurisdiction. The Jackson County Sheriff's Office remains the lead agency throughout, from the very first search to whatever comes next. The FBI's involvement has been support, not command. And then there is Nolan's phone, the piece of evidence his family has pointed to from nearly the very beginning as something that might hold real answers about his final hours. A small object that has somehow come to carry the weight of an entire family's need to understand what happened to their son. Think about that for a moment. A device small enough to fit in a pocket, ordinary in every way, now sitting at the center of a grand jury referral, an FBI-assisted threat investigation, and a mother's last hope for understanding her son's final hours. That's an extraordinary amount of weight to place on something so small. But for a family with almost nothing else left to hold on to, it's become one of the only tangible things they have. At the July 15th press conference, both sides agreed to something new, a joint inspection, with experts representing the family working alongside experts connected to the official investigation, examining the device together rather than separately, comparing findings in real time instead of releasing competing statements after the fact. Attorney Eric Hertz is leading that effort on the family's side, working with former law enforcement professionals brought in specifically for the technical work involved. As of this recording, that inspection has not yet taken place. The family is still waiting, the way they have been waiting, in one form or another, since the night their son didn't come home. Waiting on a search, waiting on a coroner, waiting on an autopsy, waiting on a meeting with the district attorney, and now, waiting on a phone. Each piece of this case has arrived slowly, on its own timeline, and each time, this family has had no choice but to wait for it. Before we close tonight, two pieces of this case deserve a quick, direct correction, because both of them spread widely, and both of them shaped what people believed about Nolan's death, long before anyone actually checked whether they were true. The first involved a photograph. An image of Nolan at a pool party began circulating online after his body was found, and for a short, disorienting period of time, a significant number of people genuinely believed it proved he had been alive after July the 4th. Somewhere out there, strangers were sharing a photo and quietly hoping it meant Nolan Wells wasn't really gone. Hope that a grieving family had to watch spread, knowing it wasn't true, and having to say so publicly, again and again. It wasn't true. Rolling Stone confirmed, through image metadata and an account from his friend Trayston Shepard, that the photo had actually been taken on June the 27th, a full week before Nolan ever went to Horn Island. It had simply been uploaded online on July the 5th, which is what caused the confusion about its timing in the first place. The second involved a video. Many believed it captured Nolan in an argument shortly before he vanished, treating the recording online as though it were the missing piece of the entire case. Shepard addressed that one directly as well. The voice on the recording, he confirmed, was his own, not Nolan's. Both pieces of misinformation have since been corrected, publicly and clearly. What's left, once you strip them both away, is what was always underneath them from the very beginning. The timeline, the unresolved contradiction between two first-hand accounts, and a family still waiting, patiently and publicly, for someone to give them real answers instead of theories. This case is still open. It remains, in every sense, unfinished. The grand jury hasn't concluded anything yet. The phone inspection, agreed to weeks ago, still hasn't happened. And the contradiction between Katie's account and the account given by Nolan's friends still hasn't been resolved by anyone with the actual authority to resolve it. What we've laid out tonight isn't speculation, and it isn't the version of this story that spread fastest online. It's what has actually been confirmed, by name, by record, by verified reporting, as of today. And it is, in many ways, the very least a grieving family deserves. Not another theory, not another rumor, just the truth, as far as it's currently known, told with the care this story has always required. Somewhere in Ocean Springs tonight, a mother is planning a service for a son she still doesn't fully understand losing. A father is still replaying a driveway, a set of missing keys, a phone call he overheard. And a young woman named Katie, who never asked to become part of a national story, is living with the knowledge that her final conversation with Nolan Wells has become one of the most scrutinized exchanges
Her name is Katie McCormick.
in the country, even though, by every account, she has done nothing but tell investigators what she remembers. That's the part of this story that's easy to lose underneath the grand jury language and the GPS timestamps and the legal terminology. Underneath all of it, there is still just a family in a small Mississippi community trying to understand how a holiday boat trip with friends ended with their son gone. Nothing about a grand jury referral changes that.
The picture with Nolan in the pool that they said happened in June, it looked like it was about 25 people in the water. And Nolan was the only black kid in the water. And when those numbers are like that, that's a very uncomfortable feeling. It's cool that these are your friends, but it's not a cool feeling for a black kid. If you're black, you would know if you ever experienced it. If you are one nomination and you hang out or go around a whole nother nomination of people to nomination, race, ethnic group, whatever you want to call it, you will see the difference. It doesn't bother you, but you see it, you feel it. All eyes is on you because of your skin color. It's almost like, why did he bring McDonald's to a barbecue cookout? We already got burgers and Frank's here.
Nothing about a joint phone inspection changes that. Those are steps, important ones, but they are steps toward an answer this family hasn't received yet. If this laid the case out more clearly than what you've seen elsewhere, send it to someone who's been following the story, and tell us in the comments which unanswered question you think matters most right now. The conversation on the beach, the GPS timeline, or one of the smaller details this family still can't explain. We'll be back with the next confirmed update.
Well, that's the first one, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed that. I did. It was really, really good. I'm going to go right into the next one because the next one is a recent update that just happened. I believe an hour ago. Here we go.
Landing in this case at once. And tomorrow brings a fourth moment this family has been dreading for over 2 weeks. First, the FBI has finally put its role in this case in writing, on the record, in full. Second, the young woman at the center of this case's biggest unresolved contradiction has broken her own silence, not through a relative, not through a secondhand post, but face to face with Nolan's own mother. Third, somewhere in this story, a family connected to this case has become the target of an actual threat, serious enough that federal resources are now involved. And fourth, tomorrow, Nolan Wells will be laid to rest. Tonight, before that happens, we're going through everything that's landed in the past few days carefully and separating what's officially confirmed from what's still being reported secondhand. For weeks, the question of exactly why the FBI was involved in this case had only been answered in fragments, a line here, a comment there. This week, the Bureau's Jackson field office released an actual, complete public statement, and it's worth hearing in full. The statement reads that while the FBI has assisted with certain aspects of the investigation using federal tools and partnerships that have proved valuable, the Jackson County Sheriff's Office is leading and will continue to lead this investigation. It describes a trusting, effective partnership between Jackson County and the FBI, built over many years of working side by side on complex cases. It says the FBI has been supporting Jackson County from day one in the effort to gather information and find answers for the Wells family and the broader community. And it closes by saying the FBI remains ready to assist further, particularly where federal resources might expand local capacity in the hope of bringing clarity and peace of mind to the people who love Nolan.
So what he's not telling you is that the FBI was only involved because of the people conducting the investigation. Life were threatened. The sheriff down there in Mississippi, lives were threatened for doing this investigation, or for conducting this investigation. So since it was a threatening thing, federal FBI jumped in to track and to try to stop any harm from being done to the people out in Mississippi. I'm going to give y'all one more thing. This one is not as long. I had to stop that because they're about to replay a whole 30 minutes of what you just heard. This is 2003, 2004, 19, 20. This goes all up to 26. It's not a lot. It's only 13 minutes. But this also this is from a great person, content, Miss Petty Brown Rise. She did a thing, and I just give a shout out to her. This is her information, but I wanted to add it in so you guys can see what took place. Here we go.
What's up, brownies? So I first want to begin this video by expressing my sincerest condolences to all of the friends, family, and loved ones of these young men, and to say definitively that each and every one of these cases are a tragedy, and all of them deserve justice. Having said that, I'm going to move right into the unpopular or unpleasant truth that just needs to be said. These cases have happened repeatedly over the past few decades, and I'm sure there's way more than the dozen that I have displayed here. But the reason that we don't hear about the vast majority of them is because American society has implicit biases, and those biases decide first and foremost who even gets to be considered human. So whose life matters at all, much less who gets to be considered a victim. So they're going to consider patriarchy, classism, colorism, more so than anything in who gets to be pushed to the front and which cases the news is going to carry. And to really drive that point home, let's talk about the fact that there were 2 teenage Black males who passed away via drowning on the 4th of July, 2026. You have 17-year-old Deion in Alabama and 18-year-old Nolan in Mississippi. So neighboring states, about the same age, and yet one case is so prevalent and so heavily covered that it's all you can see being talked about in traditional media and social media. So much so that if you did like a search engine search for Black teen male drowning, Nolan's case might be the only thing that comes up for the first couple of pages of searches. So let's talk about why he's getting pushed to the front. First and foremost, what I noticed about the vast majority of these cases is these young boys are poor and fatherless. So when America can't trot out the 2-parent household, whole thing, whatever, your case is typically not going to quite matter as much if they have someone that they feel like meets the standard. Right. So with Deion, he just had so much working against him. First and foremost, I couldn't find any information about his father at all. But as far as his mom, she's a single mom with a bunch of kids. That's not an attack on her. That's just me stating the fact. Some of which it seems like multiple of them she sent away to live with other relatives. But definitely Deion, she did. And he was sent to Alabama to be raised by his uncle, who is not only gay, but also married to a white man. This is just what it looks like from the research. But by the way they talk around the subject, you can tell that this is an effort by the local press to not lean into the particulars of Deion's life much, right? Why? Well, Alabama is a definitive red state. And in a small town that's about 90% Caucasian, once you add the element of LGBTQ and interracial marriage, that community is simply not going to rally around this young boy. The media is not going to rally around. The local media isn't. They don't really want that story and that image with these types of details surrounding it out. And so,
dude, guess how much it cost?
I'm sorry, guys. Gotta let this play. 1 second.
Make sure my family gets $1 million.
All right, it's coming back.
Just by being born into a family that America doesn't consider all American and ideal, that can be the reason why you don't get justice, right, for this young victim. But besides that, we had more cases this year already, like within months of Nolan's incident. And once again, he is dominating the news cycle. When these so-called community leaders and activists pick and choose which cases they're going to take, you're going to have certain sympathetic elements that they think that they can work with. So besides the poverty and the fatherlessness, particularly for the cases that happened in the Deep South, when you listen to a lot of these young boys' mothers speak, if it would be labeled as what the media would call ghetto or uneducated, no one wants to hear them talk. When they're not well dressed, not well spoken, their homes don't present well for interviews. A lot of these factors are taken into consideration. And don't shoot the messenger. If you go back and analyze it, you'll see this for yourself. Nolan gets to be pushed to the front for colorism reasons, first and foremost. His parents are presenting themselves as a married couple, two-parent household, well-to-do. His mom is Filipino. I find it interesting that she's been wearing her hair textured or whatever for all of these interviews, but she's been doing lifestyle content for the past couple of years on her personal social media page. And a lot of times her hair is straight and she just looks like her other Filipino sisters or relatives, so to speak. In fact, when you see the family photos, most of them are, a number of them are without the husband in the picture. But for the ones that do have the husband in the picture, he looks like the only chocolate chip in a sugar cookie. It's mostly just her family with Nolan. And of course, they look more Filipino than if, they're mixed with Black. The Filipino or whatever Asian descent that they are, that shows up in them phenotypically more than American Blackness. Some of you understand what I'm saying. There are going to be many people who are going to go out of their way to misunderstand. And that's fine too. It just still doesn't negate the truth. So Nolan's case is being pushed for those reasons. And then also the classism element of it. They have a nice home. You can look at all of her videos if it includes the bathroom. She films in her bathroom a lot. And then also the kitchen. When a home has these modern Granted, you know all of the furnishings and finishings of a modern home, large square footage. You can tell by the size of the bathrooms and the kitchens. And when you appear to be more well-to-do, you already have some money behind you. That's going to be easier for the media to latch onto. And then also for the local news, if they feel like you're somebody important, like for instance, his mom is in the medical field and she's a healthcare worker. So all of those things together make Nolan matter more. And this is kind of a reminder of the throwback case that you see in the 2004 slot. Alonzo, there's two different Alonzos in these dozen cases that I have displayed here. But this particular Alonzo, his mother is just Hispanic or Latina. And so they trotted her out a lot. The paler you are, light bright next to white, that gets the push, right? So, and then also they had moved from like the inner city to a like a more bedroom community, like a more suburban home. And so all of that helps too, right? I'm just calling it like it is. So much so that this case happened all the way in 2004. They kept mentioning it, periodically it would come back up in the media. They would do an update on it because the case is air quotations unsolved. And they even did a reboot of Unsolved Mysteries. And he was one of the episodes. His case was one of the episodes in the first season. They then went and exhumed the body and opened the cold case back up because of the community push and interest in it. So one pattern that I noticed is that tended to happen for the biracials, but not for these other regular Black boys, especially for the dark-skinned ones. But in at least half of these cases, what's happening is in your last moments, you were flirting with, talking to a white girl. And in all of these cases, according to the witnesses and the families before they were silenced, many of the poor single mom families were just silenced. Their stories started changing. And if you notice now, everybody's being pushed to say, oh, no, we don't think that it was a racial element to it. We don't think it was anything racial. It's extremely weird. Now, if you want me to do the detailed deep dive and break down each and every one of these cases, first and foremost, hype this video up. The algorithm is not going to push it alone. And so, of course, you're going to have to share the video with your other people, your mutuals, your contacts in your phone to get the views up. Make sure that it has the engagement, like, comment. If you recognize some of these cases, go ahead and drop the information in the comments so that people will know these are real people in real cases. As a mom whose son is about to head back to campus in 2 weeks, I don't want to put myself through the trauma of looking at these young boys who are around the same age and basically a reflection of exactly of my son. I don't want to think about this any longer than I have to. But if there is an interest from the public, I will go ahead and do all of the details. If not, I'm just going to end by saying this, and I really don't care how you feel about it. The inherent anti-Blackness that we are programmed with in our subconscious is the ultimate culprit in all of these cases. And I want to just say something about the one that you see that looks like George Floyd underwater for 2023. That's because both of these kids were 14 or 15 years old. And when the white boy lured the little Black boy to the water, once he started calling him, switched up on him, started calling him racial slurs and forcing his head under the water, he told him, I'm going to do you like George Floyd. You're going to be George Floyd. And so what I'm saying is, where they are teaching their children hatred, you're teaching your children to prioritize assimilation and white validation, and it's not working in their favor. There are way too many
She's really preaching, guys, white validation. Oh my God. That is the truth. I don't know why so many blacks want to be accepted by white people. If you are, you are. If you're not, you're not. It doesn't change my way I make my sandwich. I'm still putting heavy mayo on my sandwich. Hello, hello, hi. Hello, hi. It doesn't bother. Okay? All right?
Videos of young black boys you can find on social media talking about how they prefer light bright next to white. I want a biracial with curly hair, light skin, curly hair, all of this type of stuff. But when you pedestalize whiteness and make it your goal, this is what ends up happening to your sons. This is why I hashtag this whole phenomenon, hashtag Emmett Still. Use the hashtag when you're talking about these subjects. And I just want to say, because of your need for assimilation and white validation, a lot of you are going to end up resting in preference instead of resting in peace. And I hate that for you.
Wow. Guys, that was impressive. Just beautiful. I love it. Well, guys, I held y'all long enough. 147 is a special one. I'm your host, Jermaine McCrimmon. This is Humanity Unplugged podcast. We thank you guys. We're going to chop it up. Hopefully I push another one out. All right? Later. Hey, thanks for listening. Please push this out. Share. Bye.